Hey, everybody. I think we're live. Thanks for taking the time to join us here. We're excited to get into some of the details around the Karura launch, which is already well underway and going to be rolling out here pretty quickly over the coming weeks. So today is meant to be pretty informal. We have some slides that we'll walk through just to remind you as far as where we are in the launch process, what's coming up, how to find your KAR tokens, and what you can expect next in the launch process as it moves along. I'm Dan Reeser, work on the growth team here at Karura and Acala, and I'm joined here by Betty and Rui Tao. You guys want to introduce yourselves for those who may not know you?
Hi everyone, this is Rui Tao. I'm a co-founder of the Acala network. Nice to meet everyone.
Yeah, hi everyone. Calling from Auckland, New Zealand. Rui Tao actually is sitting at the same booth as me, but just next to each other. Also co-founder of Acala. Happy to be here, and hi everyone.
Cool. So Betty, if you want to share your screen, we can just move through that.
Oh, sure.
I see we've already got 26 questions, which is impressive. So we'll probably spend the time first going through the slides, and then we've set aside a good amount of time to go through everyone's questions. So you want to just click the present button so it's full screen, and then should be perfect.
Sure. Is it working now for everyone? Okay, cool. Awesome. So today is going to be quite informal, and then hopefully the stuff that we presented is short and concise, and then so we can go into the question and answer part quickly. And I think we'll start with, to say some thank yous for everyone who participated in the Karura crowdloan. And then we'll share some stats so you will have an insight into the crowdloan participation, which will have a very profound implication on the Karura launch, and also as a whole, for the Kusama and also the Polkadot community fair launch, and what does that actually mean, right? So that's going to be interesting to see those. And then I'll walk you through some of the stuff that has happened, like KR distribution, halfway through that, and then also walk you through some of the stuff that we are currently preparing. So the next up, exciting stuff that you can participate in. So this was put together by Dan last time. As you know how many, about 500,000 KSM being contributed. But most exciting thing is actually 20,000, like close to unique accounts participated, right? That basically translates into your fellow, real on-chain community members that in one way or another is going to participate in Karura's various different type of activities. And then the rewards you already know, and you know where to check it. So this is something interesting. So we found out from our analysis, only 13% of the contribution come from centralized exchanges, to most people's surprise. And majority of the people actually participated through non-custodial wallets or agencies, like things like Polkadot Extension, Polka Wallet, Fearless Wallet, Mass Wallet, also the non-custodial wallet part of the Mass Wallet as well. So so that's quite cool to see. That means all of these people already have means to actually use the Karura app once it's ready, using those wallets that they've participated in the crowdloan. So that's very cool to see. And then the second thing is about how distributed the crowdloan is. I have removed all the known exchange partners from the contribution, so you don't see the anomaly of one exchange contributed more than 20,000 KSM or something like that, because they are spread across like 2,000 or 3,000 participants. So those are removed, and that also means. That also means this chart is probably more representative of what actually happened. So as you can see, majority. So about 55% people contributed less than 10 KSM, and then if you counted in people participated with less than 1 KSM, that's like 75% of is actually very small individual contributors, and there are some slightly bigger whales, but they seem to be a small minority in this Karura launch. So I think that's pretty interesting to see. And then obviously, the more distributed this is, the fairer the launch would be, because all of this participation would translate into the portion of the KR or the network that you will own once we have everything distributed. And at the same time, this will also be all the people who can participate on the on-chain governance and also various other activities, right? So, and you can go on to the wiki to actually see more details of the rewards as well. And then just while we are here, just to update people that we've updated the wiki a little bit more, so you can actually browse through some specific information about the Karura network, the tokens available, and also some people are asking about existential deposits. What are they and how much are they, and also different types of the balances, because you will see some balances are locked and some are transferable. What do they mean and how you can check them, type of things. And as we release more stuff, and then we will gradually put more stuff on the wiki so you can check them as well. And then there's also a little bit of information on the transaction fees. Some people might be interested. You can read about them. They're so small, right? But it's still interesting to see the difference between transfer inside Karura versus transfer, kind of like cross-continental transfers from Kusama to Karura, and there's fees involved in KSM for that to happen. Bear in mind the cross Kusama to Karura part is still sort of under development. Haven't been released, so the fees might change, and then we also have a UI that we're going to show you in a few seconds as well. And then there's some stuff.
Can I stop you there?
Yep.
Can you explain to people what the milli means? Is that 1 million, 12 millionths of a KR?
1 millionth, so 1 to the 10 to the power of -3, 10 to the power of -3. So okay. So that's 0.0004. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yep. So and then there's some stuff on governance that you're welcome to read about that. There's also some stuff on treasury. Although we just opened door. We haven't completely opened door for business, so the treasury is rather empty. So I think at this stage, instead of asking what the treasury can do for us individually, we shall all think about what we can do to kind of like fill the treasury, because one of the main objective for treasury, as last time Dan and others have shared, is to be able to help us to self-fund parachain slots, right? So I think majority of you now, sort of the part steward of the Karura network, right? And then one of the responsible thing to do is to figure out how we can self-sustain and also perpetuate our continuity of operation on Kusama, and that is like getting a parachain slot is one of the most important thing. So now we are on business to a kind of like responsibly saving on the treasury so we can achieve that goal. And plus, there's other means that we can create to achieve that as well. But that's a topic for another session. And then there's also integration guide that's available. There is some guide put out there regarding the protocol as well as the network information, like the public notes available out there, and then you can also run full notes right now to actually get your own information. So it's important that this information is like transparent out there for everyone, be able to accessible. If you do encounter something that's doesn't work or something, give a shout out on Discord or some channels that you can find, so we can constantly improve this stuff. And then for collator. So we're also taking a phase approach. So encourage those who are interested to read about it. Right now, we are in a transition from phase 0, which is a private collator set, because we need to make sure that collator doesn't actually break the whole network. So we've done probably sufficient enough of testing right now, and then we are gradually open to authorize collator set. Right now, there isn't implementation on the collator incentives, as well as how you stake. The pilot hasn't been ready yet, so we are developing that so that we can get ready for the public collator set. But one thing I need to probably point out to those keen validator folks is that there is a major difference between collator and validator. Like validator provides security for Kusama or Polkadot. So when Karura connects to Kusama, when we launch, we immediately get access to the validator set from Kusama to validate our network. So we are already on the nominated proof of stake, kind of like decentralized consensus. So that is not a concern for the Karura network. The collator are there mostly to keep the network alive, so that we know there are blocks being produced, and then it can get sent to Kusama for validation. So there's no security concern for running collators. And in theory, you only need one honest collator to be censorship resistant. So it's very different from validator, where you have as many validators as possible. That's better. But for the collator set, it's not the many the better. And if you have too many collators, it could actually slow down the network. So that's why we're taking quite a phased approach to this. And then the incentive scheme will also reflect the stuff that I just talked about. So it's not gonna be as lucrative as validators, but if you run the infrastructure for multiple parachains, it's gonna work out probably quite well. So so that's all. It's kind of sidetracks, but so this is some more stats on the parachain auctions. So in addition to Karura, Moonriver, and Shiden, I think there are other networks that are being launched, right? So you guys will know Acala, which is the privacy network, and I think now there's also centrifuges as well as Hydrodex. Their Karura network parachains are being launched as well. Those are really cool, kind of like very different parachains and solid builder teams. So if you guys are like all Kusama supporters, and those are good teams to look out for as well. So these are more breakdowns on contributors. So next is something interesting to most of you, I guess. If you put in your address in the distribution.acala.network, most of you will have a status of to be distributed, right? I'm talking about crowdloan specifically. So most of these people, then you've already gone through our website or partnered agencies. So you've clicked the terms and conditions, you've agreed to the terms and conditions, and those tokens will have already been distributed to you, right? So I think Dan is going to walk us through the process of checking your balance later on, but you should be able to check your balances right now on the Polkadot.js or Subscan. But for those of you, somehow you participated in other ways, for example, directly on Polkadot web application or some other non-custodial wallets, they didn't actually pass our terms and conditions along for you to sign. Then you will have to go through a claim process, right? So you go to the claim website, and then it roughly looks like this. You actually have to read the terms and conditions and sign it. And we have provided two ways. We have provided two ways for you to sign the TNC. One is using your Polkadot.js, but obviously many of you didn't go through that route. Then you can claim manually by signing a message on chain, or you just submit a remark transaction on chain. So we can basically just verify you are who you are, and then you agree the terms and conditions. And then behind the scene, once you've done this, the transactions are batched right now it's every day, so that we can distribute the tokens to you in the next 24 to 48 hours. Yeah, and then this frequency will gradually reduce as we finish our distribution. So that's one thing to look out for. And then another thing, obviously, once then show you how to check your balances, you will realize a couple of things. One is your KR balance is made up of two parts. One is the transferable part and one is the vested part. The transferable part are the parts that, if you participate in crowd loan, and the 30% you can already use immediately. And then the rest of it is kind of locked and vested through the remaining of the lease period. And then the Karura app hasn't launched yet because we are final touching some details. For example, we are going to display some additional stuff for your KSM balance. When you do the transfer from Kusama to Acala, you will be able to see your Kusama balance on the Kusama chain, and then also your KSM balance on the Karura chain, as well as the locked amount in the Karura crowd loan, because ultimately that is your balance, right? It is temporarily locked in the crowd loan trustlessly on the Kusama chain, but that's still your balance. I don't think anywhere else that's displaying that. So some people raise some concerns about that. So we're gonna try to display that for you, so it's easier for everyone to see. So that's being built, and then this will come out probably maybe next week, once we've done some testing, and then fix all the fees and stuff. Then you can actually basically select where you want to transfer the KSM from, like transfer from Kusama chain to Karura chain, and then select the amount, and then you can get the KSM across. And then there are two components to the fee. You have to pay a KSM amount on the Kusama chain for the transaction to get sent to the parachain, and then once you get to Karura parachain, there's also a small amount that you pay to the Karura chain, right? And right now, all of those fees goes into treasury. I think the fee is probably at the same level or slightly cheaper than what's been charged on state mine, so that we don't open ourselves up for attacks and stuff like that. So yeah, so that will come. So we'll let you know once it becomes available. So. So governance, we don't know. So the governance will be run on chain, obviously, and then we're going to run most of the stuff on the Polkadot.js right now to submit proposals. For example, the next one up for everyone to able to vote for is removing the sudo key. So once we've finished all our distribution, I think Ray Tao can talk about specifics on the plan. Once we've finished distribution, then we're going to remove sudo key, and that requires us to do a on-chain referendum, and that will be hosted on the Polkadot.js web app, obviously. But we are also looking at other options for easier sort of transparency to all the proposals or council motions, changes to the network on either on a Karura app, right, or on some external solutions like PokeAssembly, etc. So there's pros and cons to each. We'll probably need a bit more discussion. So to put it on the Karura app, and then we'll probably also need to use Discourse for discussions and more contextual sort of information for the proposal. It's nice, right? It probably looks like this. It looks nice, and then it's all integrated with the app. But obviously we need to build that, and it requires a bit of time to do that. And then PokeAssembly, it's already an integrated solution, but it also needs to be customized because we have custom consoles. We have multiple consoles to manage various aspects of the network as well as the different protocols. So that needs customization, but also they're not cheap, right? We're talking like spending here, so they're also not cheap, and they're charging us, a monthly fee. So we're also debating whether it's worthwhile to go to them. And then there's also an implied third option is no matter which one we go to, all of the APIs and the code are open, right? So essentially, we're going to put up some guides, obviously, but essentially anyone can take the API and use the on-chain information and build their own UI, so they can vote or browse all the stuff themselves without relying on whichever tool that's been provided by whichever party, right? So yeah, that's some interesting stuff to talk about. Yeah, so I think that's all from me. I think I shall hand over back to Dan to continue.
Perfect. Just share my screen. Okay. So Betty walked through some new concepts that we can go through in the Q&A as well. I think we should get into a little bit more, Betty, around what it actually means to transfer KSM from the Kusama relay chain to Karura, because it's a pretty new concept for all of us and pretty cool that it's already working. But I'm going to get into a little bit on the launch roadmap and where we are. If you've been to any of our other crowdcasts, you may recognize this slide. We have moved a little bit to the right here. So we finished the crowd loan and the parachain auction, and we're currently on this rocket launching for Karura. Pretty soon, the Karura liquidity mining program will begin. Rui-Tao can make some comments about that. And then we've got the Build Acala event coming up soon, as well as the Acala launches coming up later this year as well. What's going on right now? You may have seen the KAR hit your account. There's a couple ways that you can go in and check. So Polkadot.js is one option, and then Subscan is another option. And I'll just go quickly through both of these. So one thing to note that is this is mostly for people not on exchanges. So if you use an exchange, please reach out to their support for information on how to find those tokens, because there's a process going on, I'm sure, for every exchange. For people who did contribute through Polkadot.js or through any of these non-custodial wallets and providers like that, here's a couple ways that you can check. So going to polkadot.js.org/apps, whatever you've been on last is probably where you will come. So in my case, I was on Kusama. What you'll do is you'll click up here and go to the left, and under the Kusama section, you'll find Karura. So just pick, it doesn't matter, you pick any of these. I picked Acala Foundation 3, and then you'll need to go up here and click switch to actually switch to this. So you should see the top be orange, the Karura logo will be here. And then if you don't come by default to the accounts section, you'll just want to navigate to accounts and accounts. So then what you'll see is your accounts, any account on your Polkadot.js webpage or the Polkadot.js extension will show here if they are set to show on any chain. I'll show you that in a second if you do have any issues. But you'll see your accounts, and then here, if you have any accounts that did contribute to the crowd loan, you should see a balance of whatever KAR is in your account. If you don't happen to see maybe any accounts here, for example, or you don't see any of the accounts that have KAR that you contributed with, check and see in your extension by clicking on this little P, looking at your accounts. If they are set to show any of these only, so Kusama only, Polkadot only, that's going to give you some trouble, because when you switch to Karura on Polkadot.js, the only accounts that will show are ones that are set to Karura or that are set to allow use on any chain. So you'll want to click on these, the ellipses here, the 3 dots, and then in this section, make sure that you're navigating to allow use on any chain, and then it will show up here on this screen. Second way of checking is going to Subscan. So I believe it's subscan.io. Let me check real quick. Yep, subscan.io. And you can navigate up here in networks to Karura. So these are all the networks that are supported by Subscan right now. And this will take you to a cool looking Karura page for Subscan. Whatever KSM address you used for the crowd loan, you'll just paste here and click search. And then that'll bring you to a page that looks kind of like this. So it'll show you your balance, and then it'll show you the amount that is locked. So in this case, 100 balance, 70 locked, so that means 30 is liquid. So that's it for what I wanted to cover. So Ruta, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. Let me share my screen. Okay, is my screen coming up?
Got it.
Awesome. So I'm actually gonna share like what is the next, what's upcoming next, or the whole overall launch process for the Karura network. And this page is actually live. This is our launch process roadmap page. I'm using this page as a slides to talk through like what's happening, what's upcoming, and what's the plan to fully launch the Karura network. We are constantly updating this page, so make sure that you can frequently check this roadmap or the launch phases Notion page to see what we are up to now. So I think this page has a lot of details on what feature or what functionality we are going to enable on the Karura network. But I think there's just like 3 key milestones that we can be looking at. One is that can we enable inter blockchain transfer? So for example, can we enable Kusama to be transferred from the relay chain to Karura network? So that's one key milestone. The other key milestone is that can we enable one of the core functionality, DEX? And ultimately, the final key milestone to look at is that can we enable the final, the stablecoin functionality, so trader can use Kusama or other token as Skeletal and to trade. So I'm gonna talk about revolving all those 3 key technical milestones, talking about what we've done and what's coming up. So upon the parachain launch, I think about 2 weeks ago, in the past 2 weeks, we've been constantly verifying and working around the clock to make sure everything that we uploaded, the genesis happened as planned, and this is why we started to we did a lot of tests. We did a lot of tests on the mainnet, I would call. And once we reach to some form of confidence, we start to do the distribution of the KR token. And you can see that the network is currently still under POA, and we are still testing the Kusama transfer from Kusama to Karura. And once this is been tested, there will be an UI on app.karura.network for you to transfer Kusama freely from Kusama to Karura. And the reason that we want to enable the Kusama transfer is that not only you can then trade Kusama in a decentralized way, you can also unlock additional utility for your Kusama token, such as use as collateral in the DeFi chart or things like that. So this is happening. And also, we are also distributing the KR token. I think most of you will already receive your distribution either through participation in events or either through the crowd loan. You should be able to verify that. And some of those that you already shared, you might need to claim the KR token. But that's ultimately what's happening right now as we speak. So once distribution is verified and once the cross-chain functionality has been verified, we will do another important milestone before we enable the DEX, which is we will do a governance call to remove the sudo key. So for now, the whole Karura network still has a form of like admin key. So we still have access or the admin right to the network to fully enable this this network as a true decentralized parachain. We will have a vote to remove that key, and then once the key has been removed, the only key to the network will be the governance process. So this is planned, and this will be happening, I think, very, very soon. And once the sudo key is removed, then governance call will be then start to propose, or the community can start to propose to enable all the other functionalities one by one. And then the next milestone we would like to enable is to enable the Karura DEX. to enable the Karura DEX, that means that the Kusama token, the KAR token, or later on the KUSD or any other asset can be now traded decentralizedly on the Karura network. So one pre-requirement for us to enable the DEX will be definitely we have to enable the token transfer, and that's another key milestone to look at, or another key event to look at as well. And so that is what we planned, and that's, I think, is coming up very, very soon. We do not have a definitive time frame, but I would say that it's going to happen in constantly checking this page. It's going to happen very soon. Once the DEX has been running smoothly for a short amount of time, we can then propose to open the other key functionality of the network, which is the stablecoin. So this is another milestone to look at, enable the KUSD borrow. And that's why I talk about why we need to bring Kusama, or we need to transfer Kusama from the Kusama network to Karura network as well, because that will be the very first collateral to use to borrow and to generate KUSD. So once the stablecoin protocol has been enabled, we will then start the liquidity mining program. The liquidity mining program we cover, I think we covered that in a previous chat, in the previous Cloudcast session a number of times, but we can reiterate that the liquidity mining program, we cover a number of different avenues of the protocol. So borrowing and minting stablecoin might be eligible for the liquidity rewards to provide liquidity into key trading pairs in the DEX. You can be earning both the liquidity mining rewards and the LP fee. And then ultimately, when LKSM or the liquid staking KSM is available, then minting LKSM can also earn you additional liquidity mining reward as well. So that's essentially, I think, a very, very aggressive roadmap that we are trying to roll out. Hopefully, we should see all these features to be rolled out maybe within 1 or 2 weeks, or maybe once we feel it's safe to do so. So I think the top priority for us is to, while we still have an aggressive roadmap to look at, there's also safety concern. We need to make sure that we launch with the right pace, and we guarantee, we're almost very confident to say that we launched the network with safety as well. So those is like the upcoming key milestone to look at. So I think the next key thing to look at is that when we propose to remove sudo, and then the network will be back to the community's hand, and then look at the signal of like when the DEX is going to be enabled, when the token transfer is going to be enabled, and then when the stable coin is going to be enabled. So that's essentially like an overview of like what is coming up after the token distribution. Obviously, we're going to enable the network, and we're going to get it full functional within a short amount of time.
Cool, thanks. Well, we've got 51 questions, so let's get started on that. So if you have any questions, we're going to take the questions from the Ask a Question box over here, so try to post your questions over there. So how do you, okay, hold on. Could you share more details regarding the Karura liquidity program? Will there be farms to incentivize joining the pool? Will there be a .ksm pool?
So there's three avenues. I mean, we have the Karura network has 3 protocols, right? So there's the stablecoin part, there's the DEX part, there's the liquid KSM part. All those 3 protocols will have their own liquidity mining or incentive scheme. And within those protocols, there's going to be another set of pool that you can join. For example, if you mint KUSD, initially the only collateral, at least in the very first few weeks, will be KSM. So by minting KUSD using KSM, you will be eligible for liquidity mining reward. The other pool is obviously the DEX pool. So in the DEX, there's different trading pair. You can already start to imagine there's going to be the KUSD to KSM trading pair, which most likely going to be one of the most liquid pool. So there's going to be liquidity incentive for that. There's going to be an KUSD to the KAR pair. So, and obviously there's also going to be a KAR to KUSD pair. So we think all this pool will have different different scheme of rewards. Depends on where we think most liquidity is needed. And ultimately, minting LKSM, minting the liquid staking KSM can also earn you liquidity mining rewards. The question regarding, hey, is there going to be a .KSM pool? Ultimately, there will be, but at least not in the short-term future. We need for us to provide a .KSM pool. They're gonna have a bridge between Kusama and Polkadot. I know there's a bridge being built, but it's not there yet. Once it's there, we can definitely start to work on that pool as well.
Yeah, I'll add to that as well. So for our DEX, it has a unique feature. So we can actually enable a bootstrap period without front running the exchange rate between the two tokens that we are listing, for example, KSM and KR. So it's not quite, the same as the first person who added liquidity was set the exchange rate. And you can foresee, that's going to be quite wild. So we have a, new way of doing that. So we are just about to release some documentation on that prior to launching it, so people can read about it. And I think all of this stuff actually requires another session, so we can actually walk through, what are the steps to participate in the bootstrap. And then also, you don't have to have two tokens to participate. You can go one way. So if you have KSM crossed from Kusama, you can just add one side liquidity, and then also be a liquidity provider, right? So that's something new. And then I think either next week or when we are ready, then we can do this type of AMA and walk through the details of that. Yeah. So yeah.
Great. Next one is, how do you see Karura evolving and growing alongside Acala? Would users naturally use Acala over Karura?
Well, I think we answer this. This question comes up every time that we have a crowdcast. So the first key thing to understand is that Kusama and Polkadot are different network. They have their own distinctive community. So Karura will always serve the Kusama community, and Acala will be always serving the Polkadot community. Upon genesis, the network is almost the same, but I think they will divide. They will evolve to its own distinctive network as well. For Karura, it will be more wild, more aggressive. It will be always serving as the canary network of Acala. So I think I'm pretty sure some of the audience here, they are only Kusama holder, and some of the audience here is only dot holder, and some of the audience here will hold both. So I said that's why, it's going to have different communities, going to have different user bases as well. So we don't think that there's a user that's prefer to use Acala over Karura, or to prefer to use Kusama Polkadot. Well, it can be also both as well.
Well, not individual users. Like institutions, they will certainly go for Polkadot and Acala as their preferred destination. Right? So.
Yeah, and one example of this in practice, if you saw the Gauntlet report that came out, I think it was last week, Gauntlet has gone through and done some preliminary work on parameters that they're suggesting for the Karura network. This same thing is going to happen for Acala, but when Acala and Karura are both launched and operating in parallel, you could potentially see some parameters on Karura being a little bit more risky, allowing people to take more risk as users versus what may be the case on Acala. So that's just one example. Another is the collaterals. So if we have maybe riskier collaterals, I know Betty has joked about having Doge on Karura. Who knows if that'll actually happen, but that's an example. You could have riskier collaterals on Karura versus what we have on Acala. So this is the top voted question. I don't think we can answer this, but when is the KAR token going to be listed?
It's going to be listed when it's going to be listed. And also, there's many exchanges that help and participate in our crowdloan offering in a centralized way as well. So do make sure to keep updates from those exchanges.
And definitely going to list on Karura DEX. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Will it be possible to use the vested KAR tokens from the crowdloan to provide liquidity to Karura, either as LP or in staking?
Well, I think this is a very good question. the vested KR token already have some utility, so you can vote for governance, you can elect officials, and once the collator staking palette, the staking functionality is up, you can stake and vote for collator as well. But so far, there's no functionality for invested KR portion to provide liquidity on the DEX. Well, because if you want to provide liquidity on the DEX, that will mean that those tokens will be liquid in some way. If the people is trading. But I think I see a number of requests like this comes up. Maybe we will see, we'll monitor how Karura launch, and if you to think about if we can have more innovative way or more creative way to think about additional utility for the vested portion of the KR token. And then once the network is back to the community's hands, we can propose additional use case for the vested tokens. But I mean, the straight answer for now is that it has a lot of functionality, but not now. At least not upon launch, you cannot use the vested token portion to provide liquidity on the DEX.
Participants of Build Acala 2, will they receive KAR tokens?
That's to be decided. Yeah, probably yes, but to be decided.
Yeah.
So is the system prepared to deal with attacks from hackers or other serious problems in DeFi? I want to know how stable the system is.
Yeah, so to answer that, no one can guarantee a system is 100% safe. I mean, no one. What we can do is that we can try to achieve the maximum possible confidence in terms of security. The current code has been audited 3 times, 4 times by most reputable security audit firms such as 12bit and SR Labs, and will be constantly re-audited as like we are growing products. Will be constantly re-audits. Newly updated feature as well. So a lot of thoughts has been putting through into make sure this is a secure system. You can see the partner they've been working with, Garnet, they help to secure MakerDAO, they help to secure compounds. So we'll say that a lot of work has been put towards that, but obviously no one can guarantee that any system is 100%. In fact, in the real world, no system is 100% safe.
And also I think people do need to be aware, Karura is a canary network. So not every single line of code is 100% audited, just like Kusama, right? So there's a lot of experiments and risks and chaos is going to happen on Karura, and that's the value that it's it has as a canary for a more stable Acala network, right? So yeah, so just take that in mind while you're using any of the products. And we're also taking very gentle approach to Karura. So it's like most things will have caps. When you put liquidity into it or when you trade, and so we can have a controlled sort of way to manage risk as we go. So yeah.
All right. Next question is on impermanent loss. So will the team introduce a KAR KSM pair? Is the first question, yeah. And then how does the team plan on helping us avoid heavy impermanent loss?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Betty.
Yeah. So So I think the first pair is KR and KSM, no doubt, right? And then once your KSM crossed over to Karura, then it's likely the first pool that we open will be KR and KSM, and then there's a liquidity bootstrapping period for that. Yeah, and then for impermanent loss, that's a very interesting topic. I encourage folks to actually read the article written by, I think, Uniswap folks, has a very good analysis on why impermanent loss actually happen. It happens, in very short words, it happens because when you provide liquidity to the pool, at that time, the exchange rate has an exchange rate, right? And then when the exchange rate of these two tokens deviates, which always happens, right? If it deviates from the original exchange rate that you put liquidity in, then potentially you you may be worse off than just purely holding those tokens. So it's basically like being a liquidity provider versus being a hodler of the two coins, right? And when when the exchange rate deviates, and potentially you will have losses. Because of that, there's a risk involved in being a liquidity provider. But at the same time, you need to consider, so you can never avoid it, right? If there's a fluctuation of exchange rate, the impermanent loss or the divergence cost, what they call, will always exist. So you got to balance that between this potential loss versus the accumulative fees. I think for Karura is about 0.3% for every trade that you get accumulated fees and share amounts of the liquidity providers. And then on top of that, we also give out stability fees from the stablecoin protocol, a portion of it, to the LPs because the DEX also helps the stablecoin protocol to liquidate risky positions, right? So that's going to be shared. So you get additional rewards for liquidity provider. And also there's occasional liquidity mining program on top of all of this. So you got to balance all of those out to see if it's worthwhile for you being a liquidity provider. I think there's also some statistical data to show whether it's a good return as an LP. But obviously, those statistical data is on a different protocol. So I think as we grow Karura, we're gonna have like real time data for our DEX and to see how that works out. So I hope that helps.
I wanted to just ask my own question, I guess, because this came up earlier. Could one of you explain what it means and why people would transfer KSM from Kusama to Karura? Because this is a new concept, I think, for everyone. It'd be good to talk through that.
I think there's like two parts of that. One is that the utility part, and the other one is that the participation and the reward part. So for now, Kusama has one utility on the Kusama relation, which is like to stake and earn staking rewards. By transferring the Kusama token to the Karura parachain, not only you can earn staking reward, essentially you can meet LKSM and the staking reward. You can also use the KSM as collateral to borrow against your KSM to give it more utility. You can use the KSM to provide liquidity in the DEX. So that essentially was like giving more utility and giving more reward for the Kusama token. And that's what Karura enables the Kusama relation to do as well. So if you look at the historic development of Ethereum, you can see all the DeFi protocols such as MakerDAO, Uniswap, they are all bringing additional utility to the Ethereum, the underlying assets, and ultimately they create a very positive feedback. So they see Ethereum is growing, the protocol is growing. We aim to do the similar stuff with the Kusama network as well. So to unlock and give out more functionality and utility for the Kusama token. The second more important stuff is that obviously we are going to launch the liquidity mining program on the Karura network, and one ammunition that you can get prepared to use is Kusama token. You can provide the liquidity on, for example, the KUSD versus KSM pair, or you can provide liquidity in the earliest mentioned KAR versus KSM pair. So those is like all the different avenue that you can mine using the Kusama token, and that's one of the ammunition.
Can I just add one more point? As soon as the LKSM come out, yep, you don't want to directly use your KSM in staking or any other locked aspect of KSM, because right now when you lock your KSM for crowdloan or staking, it's locked for that period with no other utility, right? You're basically sitting there and staring at it. So as soon as LKSM is enabled, then you can basically have your token at two different places, do two different things at the same time. So one is once you lock the LKSM, it still go on to Kusama and provide security for the entire network. So that part doesn't change. So you're still doing your bit for the security. And then with the LKSM token as a receipt for you to do that, you can use LKSM as a collateral to borrow stuff. You can trade. You can give it as a gift to your friend because it is staking you bearing, right? So it kind of like gives life to KSM, which is kind of like a I don't know, a static asset right now. So yeah, so I think that's the most exciting thing. And also the crossover is trustless, right? So it's cool to do it.
Yeah, so essentially right now we have Kusama on the Kusama relay chain where you're staking it. And then to do anything on Karura, like to trade KSM on Karura on the DEX, all you have to do is there's going to be a section in our app that says cross-chain, and you'll just send the KSM from the Kusama relay chain to the Karura parachain. So I guess it's in a way kind of like sending money from one bank account to another. You're just sending it to Karura so that you can use it in that world. If you needed to do staking on Kusama, then you would just send it back. So that's going to be one thing. We'll have plenty of guides, video tutorials, and everything when the time comes very soon, just to walk you guys through that process. Let's keep going through the questions here. So for those who contributed to the Karura crowd loan, will there be an Acala airdrop in the future?
No, I haven't thought about that.
Well, this is undecided. We don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could the team give us a heads up around a week before liquid staking goes live to allow us to unbond?
Yeah, I think that's definitely the plan, right? So as we see on the roadmap on Notion, so it's very important to check out as we tick those boxes. We'll give a lot of time ahead for the community to know that what's actually coming up.
Yeah, I think we can be sure that every significant step we move forward, we're gonna announce it formally, right? So people will know.
Yep. Okay, so what is the initial token supply for Karura?
We will share a very detailed token release schedule, or once the token is listed or changed, there will be detailed token release schedule to be published. What I can share now is that the initial circulating supply is actually quite small, less than 10%, I would assume. And over a year, you will probably grow to less than, I think, 40% for the very first year. So that's the initial maximum circulating supply for the very first year. And then all the other tranches, they could be released through another parachain auction once the 1 year's lease period is up. But we're looking at very, very small circulating supply upon launch and a reasonably small circulating supply after 1 year.
Okay. Will we be able to bridge over any stablecoin to the Karura DEX on launch or maybe soon after launch?
Oh, well, this is a great question. I think this announcement on USDT and USDC on Polkadot, and we already know that Tesla is coming to Kusama. So I think once the state mine system parachain is ready, USDC could circulate into the Karura network very soon. And obviously, we're also with there's also other bridges that have been working on. So, for example, the Snowfork Ethereum bridge. There's also the Interlay BTC bridge. So, yeah, there's definitely going to be a gradual enable of different assets on the Karura network.
And I think from our side, we will try to make sure all the technical facilities are ready for this different type of either stablecoin or other sort of foreign chain assets available on Karura and Acala. But as to which specific asset, let's say USDT, we want to list it or make it as a collateral or something like that, I think it requires a bit more discussion because, there's a risk. There's also advantages, like a lot of these coins have good liquidity very, very well decentralized, but at the same time, it comes with its own risk and also concerns as well. So I think all of those stuff will worth some discussion, and maybe we can have a balanced approach, like use those to help people to trade and have liquidity, but at the same time have risk measurements, like have caps on how much they actually occupy sort of the asset baskets that are available on the different networks that we have. So yeah, those are up for discussion and debate, I guess. So.
Great. Here's a good question. So I understand nominators can stay liquid while staking KSM once the liquid KSM staking is fully released. But will Karura allow Kusama validators to self-stake their KSM on their own validator?
Yeah, so the HOMA protocol actually set up, well, the liquid staking protocol is set up in a way that every LKSM you mint is a vote that you hold in your hand. So if you put KSM into it and then staking, then you essentially has a vote to vote for which validators or to actually select, right? So it's up to the LKSM holders to decide the validator set.
So you can self-select, or you can let Karura decide for you?
You can self-select, but of course you are one of the holders, right? Unless you are, a super whale or something. But I guess KSM is probably, distributed enough to not have that outcome.
Okay. Okay, when borrowing KUSD against KSM, will the DEX price or the Oracle price be used for liquidation?
Well, I think go ahead, Betty.
Oh no, you go ahead.
Well, I think both will be used. There will be an Oracle price for the auction process to happen, and we're working with Chainlink, or we will be also initially running some of the price ourselves to make sure the system will ensure a stable price fit. But the system or the Karura network is going to compare the auction bidding offer against the DEX price, and that's essentially a decentralized protocol or decentralized price fit within the Karura network, and also compare which one's better. So at a bare minimum, let's say even if the Oracle price is significantly lower than the market price, the system's still going to compare the DEX price, and then if the system find out that the DEX price is better off a liquidation source, the system will liquidate the KSF through the DEX. So I think to answer the question will be both.
So does LKSM have price risk versus KSM? Projects like Compound and Aave who, I don't understand the second part of that, but, here it is. Meaning, can there be a discount in trading between the two assets?
Well, obviously, there's going to be some small discount of LKSM if you want to immediate unbound LKSM. Well, the LKSM or the liquid Kusama, the liquid dots protocol allows, it's essentially a trustless staking pool. So people everyone can put asset into this pool, and then the system will nominate KSM or dots through a set of validators to an average return. To unbound, one can choose to go through the standard unbounding period, which is like 7 days on Kusama, or one can choose to unbound and pay a tiny amount of fee to restore the immediate liquid KSM reserve within the pool. So I think there's going to be some slight discount, and it's up to the market to find out what the discount is. So it's essentially forfeiting 7 days of forward price, I would say.
All right. Okay, there's just a lot of questions that I'm going through with 0 votes, so give me a second. This is so when do you recommend we unbond our DOT tokens from staking so we don't miss out on the early bird for Acala crowd loan? So,
I think for Kusama and Karura, it's very chaotic, right? And then we don't even know. Like, I think we stay up one weekend, thought the crowd loan is going to get announced at any time during that weekend. So everybody didn't have a weekend and just like trying to fix everything, get everything working. So that was quite chaotic. But I don't think it's going to be the same case for Polkadot and Acala. I think everything is going to be more zen for Polkadot, if anything, or at least for Acala, it's going to be more zen and calm because things are going to get announced at least 28 days prior. We will be notified by Polkadot and Web3 Foundation, like they will tell everybody, and then we will just act according to that time frame, right? So I don't think there's a rush to that because 28 days is a long time for anyone to actually lose that much staking reward. So we're not gonna be very rush to do that as well. So we're gonna release I think some plans on how we reward people to participate as early as possible as well. So not too much detail right now, but just stay calm, I guess.
I would say that we learned a lot from the Kusama auction, and then we'll make sure that we have enough time to plan for a much smoother Polkadot auction.
Yeah, I think that the point of having a Karura is like you go crazy and go nuts on the Canary network, so that you can sleep quite well on the actual mainnet on Acala, right? So that's the plan.
Cool. Here's a good question about how the loans work. So I'm wondering what the rates are for taking out a KUSD loan. Is the interest you pay back linear? Does it scale differently the more you take out?
No, I think the interest apply there's a system-wide interest, right? So the interest rate is there just to make sure the KUSD or stablecoin is maintained with peg. So if there's enough supply, there's too much demand, then the interest rate will be lower, and if there's too much supply, the interest rate will be higher. So it's just there to make sure there's the KUSD, the stablecoin, stay in peg, and it's gonna be a system-wide interest parameter that will be constantly monitored and reviewed by the Financial Council.
Yeah, and also it's not going to be very abrupt when we need to change the interest rate. I don't know if you guys remember, there were a time where interest rate were as high as like, as low as like 5% on a maker, and then all of a sudden overnight becomes 20% or something like that. But on our platform, because substrate, so we can set a time when the interest rates start to increase, and also it can be gradually from 5% to 20% if it needs to go that high, and gradually over time for a certain period. So so it's going to be a more stable process for that to happen.
Here's a great question. Will there be a liquidity provided by the Treasury at the start for the first pool of the KAR KSM pool? If not, how will the starting price of KAR be determined?
We would avoid talking about the price, but there would be for the initial liquidity. I mean, the reason that we have the liquidity mining program is that also the whole community can start to build that. To push up the liquidity needed, there will be some professional liquidity provider, and we will also be providing some initial liquidity in the pool as well. But ultimately, to build a solid liquidity, actually, it's like a team effort across the project and the community.
Yeah, and then also our pool has a liquidity bootstrap provisioning period that we are going to use for that pair. So an example would be, let's say we start the provisioning, let's say for 3 days, and then so there's no trading during those 3-day period. And then whoever wants to become a liquidity provider can then inject liquidity, either one side or both sides. And then there's also a target minimum liquidity required, right? So that we have enough liquidity when we open for trade. And then once those time requirement as well as minimum liquidity requirements are met, then basically the trading floor restriction is lifted. And then at that point, obviously, there are already liquidity in the pool. And then using the constant product, you can work out exchange rate of the two tokens. And that is your opening trading exchange rate, right? So then we will have a much calmer process. And obviously, probably also avoid most of the adversarial things that you can do to front run a DEX listing, right? So that is sort of the rough approach that we're going to take. And then, yeah, so as I said, we're going to release some more details on that in the next few days. So.
Yeah, and then I'll just add one more thing on to the point of the question about will the Treasury be funding this? So that is one of the functions of the Treasury. So the Karura Treasury will be earning KAR from the protocol fees itself. So when you do liquid staking or any transaction, there will be a portion of that exchange fee that goes into the Treasury. The Karura Treasury can also potentially get KSM from the Acala Treasury if that's voted on by the Acala community. So that Treasury will build up over time, and eventually it can do things like providing liquidity to our own protocols on Karura, as well as funding, whether it's marketing or events things, or funding development work, new tools, etc. So there's actually, so I just made a video on this today. And we're going to post that tomorrow. I think it's like noon UTC. So look out for that, and I'll go into the details on how the Treasury actually works.
Yeah. Cool. The Treasury is quite poor right now, Karura. But thanks for those who contributed via your transfer transactions. I think we've got maybe 10 KR or something, or less than that. So that's how much we can contribute from Treasury for the DEX. But I think we might be able to use some of the foundations token to actually help the bootstrap of the liquidity pool. But that hasn't been decided. But obviously, if that's the case, then I guess the foundation will put up a vote and decide ourselves whether we do that. And obviously, there's impermanent loss involved as well. But I guess we can take that risk and then help bootstrap the network, and help everyone. So.
Yeah. So Nikki mentioned, the video is actually already on YouTube, but we're posting it tomorrow. So I forgot that's already posted. Okay, so we're at like an hour and 5 minutes. So what do you guys think? Should we call it a day? There's a ton of questions, but we answered most. A lot of these are repeats.
One thing to mention on the KR distribution. So we have distributed all the crowd loan rewards. We're just finalizing, like just checking everything right now, and that includes distribution to exchanges, right? And because we've just done the distribution, and we are in the process of notifying every exchange or agencies that we have worked with. So some of them already know and taking actions. Some of them will just like take the time to actually figure out how to distribute that to the users. So so if you are participating via, I guess, OKEX, KuCoin, or Quicken or some other agencies, we are notifying them, and then you can pin them as well to ask about this as well. So so they should have the tokens and they can distribute. So.
Cool. Well, I think we can call it a day. We'll try to look through the questions and see if there's any that went unanswered, that weren't repeats, and we can get back to you if so. So besides that, I think we've had a great turnout. I think around over 500 people were able to register and join us. So thanks everybody, regardless of whether it's the morning or the night or the middle of the day for you. Appreciate you coming out and learning more about Karura. We are always on Discord, so that's the main place to go for any questions or conversations around Karura and Acala. So feel free to go there. And then I posted the link to the to the roadmap. So definitely keep this bookmarked. I'll paste it again here. That roadmap is the best place to go for the current status of the Karura launch. So keep your eyes on that. And we'll be doing these weekly. So we haven't set the exact date next week, but what we will most likely be doing is shifting this to Discord for kind of a casual conversation over the next few weeks, and just do it on a weekly basis. So you guys can always have a place to come, ask us your questions, and we'll be telling you the current status of the launch. So keep your eyes out on most likely on our Twitter, Discord for information on that call, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks.